All right, Matt, you don't need any more, but I'm gonna top this one off because I have a bunch of it. I used to go to a gas station at after work and get a big cup of ice, but then our
Ooh.
office installed a new Culligan water machine that also makes
Ooh.
ice 24/7. So I always fill up my big jug of water with a bunch of ice before I leave.
Nice.
Yeah, and it makes drinks good. Okay. Oh. Also, by the way, I don't know if you've heard of these. Oh, it's backwards. Smorio?
I have not.
Pretty good. Pretty good. The chocolate marshmallow combination isn't super great, but the graham cracker like Oreo cookies are spot on. And overall, I highly
Ooh.
recommend. Yeah, they're quite delicious.
Ooh.
I,
That
I
sounds
must recommend them.
tasty.
Yeah, might have to do that as part of an episode at some point. And speaking of episode, are we ready to go?
Yes.
Alrighty, then we're doing it. Okay.
Welcome, everybody, to Peculiar Bearings. I am Celine. And today, I am here with Matt.
You caught me so fucking off guard with that. You even did the hand thing that fucked my head up. Holy shit. I mean, I know I've had a few drinks, but like that's still wow. Well done. I apologize.
Thank you.
Let's go back. Okay, so we did that, and my name is Matt. And
Welcome to our show, where typically I read you a story and give you, and Matt gives us a food and drink pairing to go off of that. But today we are switching things up, and Matt is reading us our story,
I am.
which usually it is something true crime, weird history, ghost story, cryptid related.
Indeed.
And I am doing our pairing.
Yeah.
So,
And I appreciate you bearing the brunt of the beginning of the episode, because if you haven't yet, go back to our previous episode where we very impromptly switched roles again, but it has to do
yes.
with you being a little bit under the weather. Whereas
Yep.
this one is more planned. But I must say, bravo!
Thank you.
That was hilarious. That caught me so by surprise, because I was like, it took me a second to realize what you were doing, and then I'm like, oh, I suppose I usually like lead the whole intro.
Yeah, that's true.
That was good. I was not expecting that. That was well done.
Thank you.
I mean, without any further ado, would you like to? Now, see, now I'm kind of fucked up. I'm like, do we do the topic or do we talk about the pairing first?
So
Mm-hmm.
our food and drink pairing
Yes.
today to go with our topic of the history of whiskey is, and I have to look up the whiskey
The specifics.
specifically
Oh,
because I forget every time.
well, and I didn't get the specific one. I do remember Gabriel made a suggestion, but I couldn't. Well, I'll let you go ahead first. The
Yes.
specific one.
The specific whiskey, if you are feeling like you want to drop some money,
Mm-hmm.
is the McCallan 12-year single malt double cask.
Oh, okay. I think I missed double cask because I did find a place that was carrying McCallan, but
McCallan 12-year.
yeah, and
That
he's
is
not double.
typically what he will pick if he has the
Fair enough.
option.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the McCallan 12-year with your choice of a Texas Roadhouse steak.
Which I did enjoy heartily. I had real
So
quick
good.
story. Yeah, I went out to a fairly fancy dinner. I'm not going to name names because I'm not trying to throw shade at anyone. But yeah, kind of high buck place that's off of the Mississippi River between Minnesota and Wisconsin. And I ordered I think it was like a bone-in ribeye, and it was not great. It was a little
Oh,
dry and God, strangely flavorless. And I think a lot of people have a tendency to think of Texas Roadhouse as like they're just a chain, so they're not going to do a steak very well. But then
they
when
do their
you,
steak very well.
oh my God, it was so good. It was like seasoned just right, and it was juicy. And you had even recommended like, because I knew I had gotten the ribeye before, so I'd asked you like for a specific cut, and I got their ribeye, and it was the perfect like combo of like caramelized gristle and just
Yep.
meaty beef. Oh God, it was very good. And then I got a side of mashed potatoes and their seasoned rice, and I had a great time. And I'm not sure if this is, I don't think it's illegal exactly, but I snuck in my whiskey because I didn't want to take it home. I wanted to get it like fresh from the kitchen, so I actually snuck in a flask of whiskey. I ended up not going with the McCallan. I couldn't quite find one that was within my price range. So I did end up getting Glenlivet 12 year. Was not like double cask, but many people have told me that Glenlivet is a fine name for whiskey. And we will talk more about the ratings and how we felt about the whole evening later on. But for now, uh, we will get to the story. And yeah, I don't usually do this part, so it's weird. I'm gonna take a
Yeah.
quick sip.
Um,
I'm
real
like,
quick, I have an
yeah.
order about my fucking Instacart
Oh, really?
shopping.
Oh no,
They
hopefully
just
good news.
straight up rescheduled it for tomorrow when I am not home.
Wow.
Yeah,
I've never heard of that. That
I'm
is
gonna just
wild.
cancel it because that's
You
I'm
may
not
as
home
well.
to get it.
Right. And the like I've never even heard of that. That is bizarre. Wow. Yeah, because at this point it's like I don't need it tomorrow. And like I can still
Yeah.
have it tomorrow, but yeah, like you say, I'm not gonna be here. I ordered it today. And that's why it blows my mind that you had a driver assigned. Because it's one thing if like they
Mhm.
keep like people aren't available, they keep bouncing around and then they're like right on the fringe of your delivery area or whatever. But you've been assigned the same person this whole time, haven't you?
Yeah. So this person already shopped for the groceries.
Yeah, oh, you mentioned that. They are yeah, so supposedly
All
all
they
your
had to
stuff is
do
in
was
their
show
car.
up at my house,
Hmm.
which I'm assuming because it never made it to the car, I'm assuming it was just in like a controlled climate environment, but like
Oh, so it's still technically at the store.
I think so.
So okay, yeah, so they had someone do the shopping, but it's still there waiting to be
Yeah.
grabbed. Okay.
But that
So
person
then
like does the
right.
shopping and then takes it to your house for you. So I don't
Okay.
know what the fuck she was doing.
That huh. Well, hopefully it's still there. I mean, they can't possibly bring you cheese from yesterday that's like just sitting in their trunk or something. That
No,
can't,
I'm
yeah.
just canceling the whole order, getting a refund, and then I'm gonna complain
Yeah.
because I'm pissed.
And I'm gonna complain. I mean, that's unreasonable.
I'm gonna
That's
complain.
well, and to be fair, even the scenarios I was telling you about, I was on like the fringes of the Twin Cities. You're in a
I live
fairly
in
densely
Denver.
right. Yeah, that's like there's people Instacarting all over the goddamn place. It's not like you shouldn't be at like a loss for drivers doing stuff. So like what the hell? That is really weird. Ugh. But we'll we'll check in with you tomorrow.
Ugh.
Is there anything that you needed like immediately or will you make it
Well, I
for?
was gonna cook dinner, so
Oh. Okay. That's affecting plans for sure.
yeah,
Out of curiosity, what were you planning on making? Quesadillas?
I was gonna do like a risotto.
Ooh, yeah. And you do need fresh ingredients. Yeah, you can't have
Yeah.
day old trunk dairy that was sitting in someone's car for way too long.
So I do have to ask, going
Yeah.
back to what we are doing, um, for the pairing,
Yes.
how do you think it relates?
Oh, yes, yes. Well, so when we were talking about this one, I I'm willing to assume that you did give me a specification, but your original message was just whiskey, duh, if I recall correctly, as like the
Yeah,
drink. So I'm like, I feel like that's just on the nose of like the topic is the history of whiskey, so the drink is going to be whiskey. Um,
yeah,
and I was actually thinking about this. I'm assuming, would I be correct in assuming that Texas Roadhouse specifically isn't part of it? It's just like a steak.
yeah, that would be
Okay.
correct.
In which case I was assuming just kind of a general sense of like American, like it's just the standard kind of American diet of like a great steak and a hearty whiskey.
Yep.
Just kind of America. All right, good. Yeah, like that's kind of the sense I got. Even as I was eating the steak, I'm like, this just feels like a handful of America. I got a mouthful of juicy America, and it's pleasing me very strongly.
Yeah.
Which coincidentally is not where our story is going to start. We will talk to
Oh,
America. Yeah, we will talk about America, but we're gonna go way back a little bit. But first of all, my sources are Still Spirit Whiskey Shop on YouTube channel, My Book of Science YouTube channel, Forbes.com, SipJapan.com, scotch-whiskey.org.uk, irishwhiskeymuseum.ie, which I didn't even know was a
ooh,
dot thing. Yeah. JSTOR.org, which I'm not really sure what that stands for, but I got like an article from them. Blindbarrels.com, Wikipedia, of course, and my personal favorite for this episode, at least, Whiskeypedia, which I didn't know existed,
ooh.
but yeah, I'm like, that's fun. Almost brand infringement. It's really close to Wikipedia, but I mean, it's clearly all about whiskey, so there you go. Okay, so the history of whiskey. Before we jump right into it, I will say again, I looked back in our notes, and I'm pretty sure I had talked to you once at least about this before. I have no idea why I suggested this. I have no idea why I wanted to do this. I was looking back through my YouTube history. I'm like, there has to be something that sparked this in my mind. I'm not a whiskey guy, so I have no idea where this came from. But here we are. And so, first things first, we have to discuss the spelling, because one thing that I was actually surprised by is it's not consistent, at least across the world and between continents. Here in America, we are used to inserting an E between the K and the Y, so it's whiskey.
Yeah.
Most other places on Earth, there's no E. It's just WHISKY. It's just whiskey. And I couldn't find a single
Interesting.
explanation. Yeah, I couldn't find a reason why we had an E, but the few things that I've learned about Americans in the past and
It's just
differentiating
because we
spelling,
fucking can.
exactly. My understanding it was just it's not what the Europeans are doing, so we're doing it different. It's like, all right,
Yep.
good on you, America. That's just how we are. So, many people believe and have persisted a certain myth that monks began distilling spirits like this before anybody else. Um, but techniques for distilling were already known throughout Europe, Asia, and the Middle East for many centuries ahead of these monks. The sources I found didn't specify like where these monks were from, but I guess just monks. So like spiritual people. The monks, however, would distill some alcohol for medicinal purposes, and I did find some reports of them making certain types of wine. But even that was based mostly on like religious or spiritual practices rather than like recreational refreshments. The first actual confirmed record of Irish whiskey being distilled dates all the way back to 1405. There was a record of an Irish chieftain named Richard McRannell that is pulled from a tome named The Annals of. Oh, I should have put a. You were kind enough to give me a lot of pronunciation things on the last one. Annals of Clonmacnoise. Clonmacnoise. There's a lot of consonants in there. Anyways, Annals of Clonmacnoise. Um, and it notes he actually died from what they call a surfeit of whiskey, which is a word I've never heard, but it apparently means an excessive amount of something. So he was given a shitload of whiskey and did not do so well. They attributed his death to the whiskey. And my favorite part about this is that back in the day, whiskey and other spirits, I'm assuming, but everyone said that this was generally specified for what we now know as whiskey. It was referred to as Aqua Vitae, which, if you happen to know anything about Latin, means the water of life. So I personally think it's hilarious in an ironic way that he had too much of the water of life and that ended up killing him because he, anyways, it's supposed to save his life and he died. Now, many say that the Scots started distilling first, but the oldest records of Scots distilling whiskey was actually back to 1495. So the Irish still have beaten them by almost 100 years. But the Scottish king placed an order for enough malt to make 500 bottles of whiskey. And this demonstrates that distilling was well underway because that's a very large order, but it was still much later than Irish records show us as the beginning of whiskey distilling. Like so, yeah, it's so I couldn't find anything that was like a specific date, but and even with this one, like they say that it clearly shows distilling was well underway in Scotland, but like the first record they have is from 1495, so it's like clearly there was still distilling happening in Ireland
Yeah.
earlier. It's yeah, and the two records are almost 100 years apart. So most people attribute whiskey to being started by the Irish by almost a century. Like so
Wow.
many things, yeah, it's quite a ways. Like so many things in the history of human invention, naturally distilling came out of a necessity for preservation. That's kind of like where we get beer and certain things. But if farmers found themselves with a surplus harvest of grain, they would first brew it into beer before it would spoil just as like a food source. And then making beer would leave them with a large supply of wash from the brewing process. So, of course, instead of just letting that go to waste, they eventually found a process they could use to further press it into another drinkable spirit that was much more hearty than beer, but had like basically infinite shelf life. And so distillation was invented. And unfortunately, for a long time, the process of distillation was really, really inefficient. They would usually have to distill it at least twice to get anything that was not even by today's standards. Based on what I could find, like back then, I mean, it was like barely what we would call moonshine, but they would have to distill it at least twice to get even close to drinkable.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, this was mostly independent farmers and stuff just across the land, each doing it independently. So there wasn't exactly a uniform process. So none of them had a consistent quality. So, if you went a couple miles to another town or to somebody else's farm that you knew, it could be wildly different than what it is like in your own town. Um, and once again, like most things in history of human innovation, this kind of independent distilling remained the standard for literally centuries. And we all know that the more that we have invented, the faster we invent new things because we find ways to innovate and whatnot. But through past hundreds of years and all that, things tend to go slowly. And as we get closer to present day, things kind of ramp up quickly with the industrial age and all that. But anyways, back in that age, things stayed stagnant for a pretty long time. And
Hmm.
that brings us to whiskey with an E, because whiskey production was brought across the ocean in the 1600s as European settlers started laying
Hmm.
down
They
permanent
put it
roots in
across
the.
the pond, did they?
Exactly, yeah. They're like, well, if we're,
Right.
Look, if we're gonna, yeah, I mean, if we're gonna be, taking over a new world, we want to be sloshed. Not gonna do
And
this,
obviously,
obviously.
I'm not
Um,
doing any of this sober.
what? I do like the
I
thought
mean, if
of,
I had to cross
oh
the
my
ocean for several months, I would prefer to do it drunk.
for
I'm just
sure.
saying.
Yeah, and I don't know much about scurvy, but I feel like in the 1600s we still hadn't necessarily had it figured out. So
No,
like
we
if
did
that was
not.
another, yeah, if that's another thing that I'm potentially facing, yeah, I just want to be drunk. And
Yeah.
so like for so many other things like in human history, drugs and alcohol and stuff, we don't
Yep.
necessarily need a plan for settling. We don't need to know how to grow crops, but we're definitely bringing distillation with us. That's the one thing we needed for survival. So specifically in 1640, a man named George Thorpe, he's credited with distilling the very first whiskey in the Americas. Again, whiskey with an E. He used a base of corn grown in what is now the state of Virginia. The
Okay.
Yeah, one of the colonies. The earliest whiskeys made in the United States tended to be rye whiskey. Well, that was a mistake. I used a down arrow, and that's not where I was.
Oh
Oh, that brought me
no.
so far away. Hold on. 1600, 1640. There we go. Virginia. Okay. The earliest whiskeys made in the United States tended to be rye, so named for the grain that was used in its production. And there, at this point, of course, there isn't much of a whiskey industry to speak of. I mean, it's mostly, again, just kind of independent farmers. But by the 1700s, rye had become the number one whiskey enjoyed in the colonies. So it was kind of an
Okay.
American thing. I didn't find exactly what they were using prior to this, but apparently rye is kind of like that's where the name comes from. It's like the American whiskey. That's why it's kind of just big here. It's kind of the signature of the American style whiskey. Um,
Okay.
yeah. And so early settlers used the same kind of stills as Europeans did because, of course, they just came from Europe. They are Europeans. However, it was still initially even more crude in the States because of how they used grains like rye, corn, and barley in the process. They were actually fermented into a mash. And that was
Ooh.
like, yeah, from that, they could actually get the vapors out of the alcohol. I didn't quite understand how that was supposed to work, but yeah, they just kind of let them sit and then the alcohol would naturally come out of them and then they would cook it to get
Okay.
the alcohol to be released even stronger. And these vapors were then collected and condensed into a sort of crude form of moonshine and it was extremely strong,
Oh, I
especially
bet.
since yeah, I mean it's just straight alcohol. It's essentially rubbing alcohol, and so, this is
Yeah, it's
before they had,
gonna put hair on your chest.
yeah, this is before they took to like putting them in like wooden barrels. So I mean, it's just straight alcohol. So it hasn't been
Oh,
matured at all. It's, ugh. Like you said, it's definitely the hair on your chest kind of thing.
yeah.
So all methods of whiskey production remained as single batch distilling, regardless of where it was being distilled, whether it's in Europe or the Americas, whatever. And oddly enough, this actually only started to change when England decided, as they are wont to do, as we know in America, they liked to tax the shit out of stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of what they did. And so in 1707, England imposed taxes upon every single drop of whiskey in the European area. Well, primarily the British colony. I guess they didn't necessarily all of Europe. But anyways, based on what I was able to find, this included individual distillers, not just like people making a business out of it, like commercial distributors or anything.
Mhm.
So this includes all of the farmers who were just using their excess grain for distilling. So like this used to be a
Oh,
process. Yeah, like it was just a way to preserve their grains, and now they're being taxed on like this backyard distillery they had. Um, and so they found themselves either having to completely give it up, or they were being assessed huge taxes, or they would do it in secret. So a lot like how America in the 20s were kind of doing it in the
yeah.
shadows. Yeah. By the 1760s in Europe or England, only 8 legal distilleries existed throughout all of Scotland. But as I previously mentioned, one of the options is illegal distilling. So an illegal whiskey trade absolutely exploded. Uh,
Well, and I mean, the Scots are also like anything to fuck over the British. So,
they're, yeah, they're kind of
they're
like,
not going to touch our whiskey money,
well,
obviously.
for sure, I could see that being part of the motivation of like, fuck you guys. We
Yeah.
didn't want to be part of your kingdom, and now you're forcing us to be part of your kingdom,
And
and
you're
you're
forcing us
not
to pay money to it.
right. Which it's like this really is like, as an American, you see this as the precursor to the revolution in America, where it's like, did you guys not fucking learn? People don't like it when you just tax the shit out of the stuff that they produce
Yeah.
for you. It's not going to lead to good stuff.
Nope.
So some historians estimate that for every one legal distillery, and again we're counting 8, illegal operations numerated in the hundreds. So there could be up to
Oh.
like, yeah, there could be up to 1,000 illegal distilleries at this point. But it just shows how crazy as humans we are for
Yep.
alcohol.
Hmm.
We're willing to risk life and limb, and certainly lifelong imprisonment for our spirits.
Yep.
Yeah, we do. And of course, governments love their easy sources of cash. So this restrictive taxation went on for more than 100 years, and we've also
Oh,
learned,
wow.
yeah, it was a long time. That's the one difference between like this and the American Revolution, is that I don't believe it took us as long. I'm trying to remember like when taxation started for tea, but mid to late 1700s for sure. Like it didn't take a whole long time, and we're like, fuck you guys.
Well, which also makes me wonder, as this all happens, what was Alexander Hamilton doing when we had like the Pennsylvania Whiskey Rebellion? Where he's
Right.
like, you've literally watched this all happen before.
Yeah.
So why?
You would assume that they would. My only assumption is the idea that it's like, well, now we're governing ourselves, so it's not so much
Maybe.
without
It's not
representation.
because like it's for the king, it's for us. Maybe. I mean,
Mhm.
maybe.
We just fought a revolution. We need to fill our coffers. Come on, it's America, baby. Yeah, I'm Alexander Hamilton. Get on board. I mean that.
At the end
You.
of the day, Americans don't like paying for shit. So,
I, they have, if
which
there's
is
one
funny
thing.
because we're taxed on fucking everything.
Yeah, the irony of it, and I think a lot of us don't even realize just how much we are taxed, and yeah, the irony of like one specific tax from history hundreds of years ago led us to rebel against the crown, and now we get taxed on so much shit, and we still can't have uh universal health care. So I'm just saying.
Which, I mean, I think the thing that's really funny about it is the fact that everyone will be like, "Oh, well, they're taxed so much in the UK," and it's like, or in like Canada and all that. I'm like, yes, they don't have sales tax. They don't have tax on the item that you were then paying for.
Yeah.
They don't, their income tax works entirely differently.
Yeah. And my
They don't have to
understanding is
pay
also
taxes and it's a guessing game. You just get a check in the mail
right.
or a
It's much
notice of
more
how much you
simple.
owe.
Yep. It can be simpler, and we fight against it so hard for the like I went on a YouTube rabbit hole recently just about the metric system versus the imperial system. And we are so stubborn that like so many
Yep.
times in history we have known for a fact that the imperial system doesn't make any fucking sense, and we have tried multiple times
Yep.
to get away from it. Yeah, somebody always finds a reason to be like, no, we're not gonna give way to that metric bullshit, and it's like, guys, it's so much simpler. It
It's
makes so much more
literally,
sense.
yep.
Oh yeah, we're just so stubborn.
America.
America. Yeah, fuck yeah. Gonna measure with an inch and a foot now.
Yep.
Yeah. So we know that governments love their easy sources of cash, and
Yep.
this restrictive taxation went on for more than 100 years. We've also learned that sometimes the easiest way for a government to reduce crime is simply to legalize it. We've got
True.
yeah.
True.
We've seen weed get progressive more here in the States, and some countries have had success with legal sex work. Um, and I feel like we should understand the concept of like people are doing it anyway. So maybe if we
Yep.
legalize it and then regulate it, we might be able to actually like shore up our taxes, and the national debt just keeps getting bigger, and we could just tax them. Anyway, that's a different
Yeah.
episode.
That is a different conversation for another time.
Yeah. So finally, like we said, this started in 1707, and in 1823, England passed the Excise Act, excuse
Okay.
me. And although this did reduce opportunities for evading taxes, they closed a lot of loopholes and stuff. It actually significantly reduced taxation on distilled spirits, and it officially set a licensing fee for a still. So rather than running the
Okay.
risk of being caught by excise men and distilling illegally, you could just get yourself a license for relatively cheap. They said that back in the day it was like £10. And I did not look how much that was right now, but it's way more now. But for like a business, it's reasonably cheap. And so you
Yeah.
could just distill all you want. And the nice thing was generally you just paid the license for the still, and then that was
Mm.
the only tax you paid. And you could, you know, I believe if you were exporting it, you would pay another tax. But if you were just selling
Yeah.
it to your friends and neighbors, you could sell as much as you want, make a bunch of profit, and there you go. So the point is progress. And once
Woo.
again, yeah,
And
we
how are they going to ruin it?
once we get to America.
Damn it.
um no, I don't think we ruin it super quickly. But once again,
But it does happen.
oh, of course it does. I was just looking ahead. The next section is about America. So, okay. Once again, we sure do love our alcohol.
Yep.
But this led to a huge legal distillation boom because of, again, like a lot of the operations were in the shadows. They were illegal. So they're all
Mhm.
still doing their distilleries, but now they can be out in the open and legal. So legal distilling absolutely skyrocketed. And now we've already jumped to the 1800s, but
Okay.
we're in Europe. So we've technically already, you actually already mentioned it even. We're going to jump back about a century, and we won't spend a lot of time on this. But please check out episode number 122 for a bit more in-depth telling of this that Celine will take us through. But we are going to talk quickly about the Whiskey Rebellion of Philadelphia. And quick side note, this is not to be confused with the Whiskey War, aka the Liquor Wars, that happened between Canada and Denmark in the 1970s. And I'm starting to think we should do an episode on this because it was hilariously comical and amicable. Like it's one of the few conflicts in history,
Aw.
yeah, where it's just kind of funny. But it's over a dispute of the Hans Island in
Is
North.
that where they just like repeatedly put their flag down and like a bottle of liquor?
I believe,
So
yeah.
then they just keep going back. Like they still do this, go back and forth.
Well, right. No, I believe it has officially been settled. But yes, that's what you're saying, where it's like it's this one little island, and the language that they had in their agreement, it just didn't specify exactly like where this
Mm.
one island was supposed to be. And so they're like, we'll figure it out. But yeah, that's another episode for another time. So, to briefly give an overview of the rebellion, after the Revolutionary War, the US wasn't exactly solvent. They didn't have a whole lot of money on hand, and so
Mm.
they needed a way to pay off its debts. So the aforementioned Alexander Hamilton spearheaded the very first federal tax of a domestic product in the fledgling nation. And naturally, after just fighting a war regarding this exact kind of issue, as we were just discussing, local farmers and distillers got kind of pissed. So
I
they
mean, I would too.
Well, right, because you're like, some of us served in the war. Like, we're part of the militia. We fucking fought, wherever we could to push these people back. And it was like, now you
Mhm.
want to suddenly do the same thing? And
Yeah.
like we were talking about before, like you kind of understand it. We're a new nation. We are taxing ourselves this time. So it's like you kind of get it, but it's still like we lost family members for this, and now you're taxing us again.
Yep.
But anyway. So yeah, a bunch of people in Philadelphia started mobilizing, and they would actually attack the tax collectors. And George Washington himself, as already being voted in as the first president of the United States, along with Hamilton, quelled the rebellion personally in Pennsylvania with a militia of more than 10,000 men. So now that the Whiskey Rebellion is behind us, we've gotten through the Excise Act of 1823. That brings us to 1831. I had mentioned before that like the act of distilling had stayed stagnant for years and years. That
Mm.
brings us to a man named, oh, I even wrote this down. I was smart enough. Aeneas. It's a weird spelling. It's Aeneas. And what I wrote down is,
Interesting.
yeah, Aeneas Coffee. And he will come
Aeneas
along.
coffee.
Yeah, his name is Coffee, but he deals with alcohol.
He must have not gotten in the family business of coffee
No, I guess
dealings.
so. Well, and I looked it up too. Like his last name, instead of the last E, it's a Y. Otherwise, his name is Coffee. He just so maybe he changed it from his family that like had two E's, and he changed it to a Y because he's like, I'm going into fucking alcohol, motherfuckers. I'm doing that bean
Yeah,
roast
maybe.
bullshit. Mm-hmm. So he finally comes along to update how we do distilling, and
Mm.
he created a new kind of still that revolutionized not just how whiskey was made, but how efficiently and at a higher standard of quality it was made.
Oh,
Yeah, and the way I looked at it is he's essentially the Eli Whitney of whiskey. You got the cotton
yeah.
gin. Yeah. Um, and so we'll take a before we get to what his still is, we'll take a quick aside here to talk about what distilling actually is. Simply put, it is the process of separating out liquids based on their different boiling points. It's one of the oldest forms of like very, very simple chemistry in all of human
Mm.
history. And it was known, if I've read this all correctly, the first time that we ever actually made use of it was to desalinate salt water. So we would just boil water to turn it into just pure distilled water. And then you would have like a salt. So like most people, at least I don't know, in the US, you would do that in like high school chemistry where you would have salt water
Yeah.
and then you would boil it off. Yeah, and so then the flask you had, it has like all of the like gritty, gross, dry salt, and then you would just have pure water in the next vial. And for anyone who's not familiar with how that works, you would usually just take water, put in a bunch of salt, you put a Bunsen burner under it, you attach another container, and then as the water condenses, as it rises into the next thing, it turns into water, and then it's fresh water in the next container. Um,
Great.
yeah,
Real quick, I need a bathroom
yes,
break.
let's do it. I'm gonna answer a
Thanks.
text, and we'll come back. Oh, Craig. That's all I got. I'm sorry, Craig. I'm focused on my own notes. Whenever I do one of these, I get really like into it and I talk fast. I try to slow myself down, but I can't help it. You don't even know what that means, do you, Craig? Like just literally the word talk. Like you don't get it. You don't understand. This fucking guy. Taking the opportunity to do this. Instead, I was talking to Craig for a little bit.
Oh, nice.
He's so
Do you have
smart.
anything interesting to share?
No.
Damn.
I'm gonna be honest. Even as a relatively sane person, I feel like I genuinely like there's like a 1% part of my brain that thinks one of these days he's gonna talk to me. Like he's gonna have some kind of strong insight
And when you
and
do,
be
no one will believe you.
no. And I'm like, I think part of it is like that's why I talk to him because he's recording the episode, but then I'll have some kind of like weird fugue state thing happen where I'll think he's talking to me, and then I'll try to convince everybody. I'm like, no, no, I swear to God. But then of course he won't have talked to me. But then he'll talk to me later and he'll be like, nobody will believe you. And I'm like, fuck you, Greg. And I'm gonna turn this into a movie. I'm gonna make it
Well,
kind of
there
like
you
a
go.
five. Yeah, I'm gonna make it like a Five Nights at Freddy's kind of thing, except also kind of a Harvey the Rabbit deal, where like I'm the only person that Craig talks to.
Okay.
Yeah, we went through a lot while you were gone.
I
a
believe
lot's
it.
been, a lot's been happening. Okay, where were we? Distillation.
Yes.
We already did that.
We talked
Okay.
about distilling salt water.
Yes. So that was like the earliest form of distillation.
Okay.
Prior to 1831, people were doing simple distillation. It's the same kind of like copper pots, basic stills. And they even used copper because they were aware already how it was kind of naturally filtering. It was antibacterial and it would
Hmm.
filter out sulfur compounds. So it would give a smoother taste to their whiskeys. But like we had talked about before, this simpler form of distillation, it led to really inconsistent brews. It was a lot of independent brewers. There wasn't really like a large scale thing going on. And so Mr. Coffee's still, it changed the whole like landscape of everything. He
Yeah.
created a new kind of still that depended on what we now call continuous distillation. And I was
Okay.
supposed to remind myself to show you a picture, but I can't
Ooh.
remember if I already loaded that up. Oh, I did. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Oh, I gotta get rid of that. Here we go. No. Oh my god, I'm messing it up. This whole thing is becoming a huge disaster. View image.
Oh
There it is.
no.
I'm not as good at this as you are. Share screen. There we go. Oh, why is it not?
Oh.
Can we zoom in? There we go. So it takes the same basic concept, but it also
Hmm.
expands upon. One thing we didn't talk about is there's a difference between simple distillation, which is generally two different liquids that you're trying to separate, and they have to have pretty drastically different boiling points because the whole point is one has to evaporate into a tube and then condense. Whereas this type, and also like what is called, I believe it's fractal or fractional distillation, you kind of have these
Okay.
separate sort of kind of cavities in the tube as it's going up so that they can be closer together in their boiling point because they'll slowly evaporate and then over time they kind of evaporate higher and higher and higher. And I learned in my research here that that's actually what we do with gasoline. So
Oh.
when we get crude oil out of the ground and we're going to process it, we put it into a big drum, we heat it up into a big pressurized sort of thing, and then we use this exact sort of process to separate it into various like jellies and like lubricants and then gasoline. And so at each temperature level, they kind of separate out into their singular useful thing. And yeah, so that's the distillation process. And that is, again, I think I said that right, fractional.
Yeah. That kind of makes me think of um when you were soldering items together with like jewelry, you have
Mm-hmm.
different metals that have different melting points. So that you always start with your one with the highest melting point. So that as
Mm.
you have to go in and add like reheat items, you're not then
Oh, yeah.
further melting the initial like
Right,
attachments.
right. Yep. No,
It's
that's
also
perfect.
preferred
Yeah.
to do it all at once if you can.
Yeah. It's depending on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're either gonna do
But
all
that's
of
like
them.
what it
Yeah.
made me think of with like the different boiling points.
Well, and actually, so the way that you mentioned it, it's kind of reversed because you're doing hottest first and then like lowering the heat temperature. Whereas with this
Yeah.
process, it kind of the top one will be the lowest temperature boiling point because it will rise highest.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's the same, yeah, exact same kind of thing, except just different. Well, and that's also melting metals, and we're talking about gases, but it's the same
But still.
concept. Right, exactly. You got it exactly. It's perfect. Um, okay. I think I did that whole thing. Oh, so unlike previous stills, even though I was talking about like fractional distillation, what he
Mhm.
designed created the system of continuous distillation. So in addition
Ooh.
to, yeah, the concept of fractional, it had a series of pipes and like pots that would continuously cycle. So we had talked before about how the simple distillation process required that they did it like at least twice. So this one
Mhm.
would constantly go through the distilling process. So as it was going out into like the emptying cask of where it was getting the pure alcohol, it was already distilling
Yeah.
it multiple times, so you got the purest form of the alcohol that you could get. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, it had like interconnected chambers, and they were connected with a series of tubes, and it had a looping system that would constantly like heat and condense and then cool and then reheat and all that stuff, so you could continuously distill without any interruption. And this distilling process had three major benefits. It made the whole process automated, so you didn't have to like sit there and watch your still as it was doing stuff. You had to tend to it a little
Yeah.
bit, but the distillers could create a consistent lighter spirit, and it
Mhm.
allowed for mass production because you could go off like doing other things and it would just keep doing its thing, so you didn't have to sit there and just focus on it, and
Yeah.
it could do much larger batches. Um, there was one problem. Its biggest drawback
Oh.
was that it removed like all of the fats, the oils, and basically the flavor characteristics of the grain that was being
Oh.
used. Yeah, so we're used to seeing this kind of darker brown spirit, and it was almost completely clear, so it had basically no flavor.
Oh.
Yeah, and coincidentally, this so-called drawback actually eventually led to two additional benefits. The first was realizing that any grain could be used through the process. So we talked about like rye and barley and yeah,
Yeah.
because they all essentially ultimately distilled out into the same kind of moonshine. It didn't really matter which one you used. You ended up with just super strong alcohol. And so this inspired brewers to try mixing this mass-produced spirit with other darker, more independently made whiskeys to add flavor. And this resulted in what many consider to be the most important innovation in all of whiskey history, which is the blended whiskey. So like you see that
Ooh.
on yeah, you see that on labels nowadays, but you don't really think about what it is. And it all came from this. You know, in the Americas, we were blending whiskey because we had this new process, and it led to a whole new like flavor profile thing.
That is so interesting. I would have never thought about that.
I wouldn't have either. Well, and there again, I've seen it on shelves a bunch of times, but I didn't think about like what a blended whiskey was.
Yeah,
And it sounds so prestigious. They're like, well, we've specifically
it
blended these.
does.
Yes.
We've blended these flavor profiles together to make this.
Mhm. Yeah, very good. So after the tax restrictions of the 1970, oh, Jesus, the 1760s were lifted, this is
Mm.
a yeah, this is 100 years later. There was another sudden boon that was brought to the whiskey industry. France became entrenched in a crisis of a bug infestation. It was a
Oh
vast,
no,
yeah. It's like
it
France is
is
kind of
killing
known
our grapes.
exactly. Yes, exactly. And so, like, what the fuck do we do? Well, that was German. Hold on. So, yeah, it was like I don't
That
know.
was like a French German.
It was sort of French. Yes, it was the French, but like it was like Achtung.
Yep.
Um, a vast swath of their vineyards were beset by a pest called phylloxera. Um,
Oh.
well, and coincidentally, it actually happens to be native to North America. So this means that French brewers went to America and they saw like this different style of grape. It was a whole like botanical curiosity. And the way I read it is apparently these botanists were like fucking nuts. And they're like, oh my God, there are new grapes. Look at these grapes. They're incredible. And they brought them back to Victorian England, so I did the wrong accent, but that's where it originated from. Uh,
Ugh.
yeah, but scientifically, the name is. Oh, I should have written down a thing for this. Dactylosphira vitifoliae. I'm not doing very good.
Okay.
Yeah. So they laid waste to vineyards all over Europe, and as pests tend to do, they're in a new environment, so they have no natural predators, so they just take over the whole place.
And
And
this is why we have invasive species.
yes, if you've ever gone fishing pretty much anywhere, I think in the United States, I know that there's a lot of stuff in Minnesota specifically that always talks about like, hey, clean off your propellers when you take your boat out of the lake because you might be dragging a certain type of fungus or weed or something to another lake, and it's like we don't want to cross contaminate. So like even within a county of some state in the U.S., you could be bringing stuff to another environment that's not used to it. So yeah.
Mhm.
As we all know, grapes are kind of important to the production of wine. So this
Yeah.
absolutely devastated the wine industry, and it was leaving a lot of people without their most beloved refreshment.
Oh,
Um, yeah, and in addition to just
c'est
wine, oh, well done. Say that again.
c'est tragique. It's
Mm,
tragic.
I did understand. Yes, it's tragic. I didn't realize this, but apparently cognac is also made from grapes. And
Oh,
yeah, and
I
so
don't know what I thought it was made of,
I know
honestly.
I thought the same thing. I was like, wait, what is it then? But it makes sense because it's similar to brandy, and
Yeah.
as far as I know, in like the American bootlegging age, the concept of brandy wine came about because they would condense wine, they would essentially dehydrate wine, and it would turn into
Okay.
a relatively viscous thing known as brandy wine that you
Mm,
could condense into smaller barrels that didn't look like alcohol barrels that you like they were easier to like sneak past checkpoints or whatever, and then when they got to their destination they would just reinfuse them with water and it would more or less turn back into wine. But that's
yeah.
essentially where brandy got its start because they would just drink whatever was in the barrels and then they refined their like distilling and aging process and we now have what's called brandy. But my understanding is that's essentially what cognac is. um
Okay.
yeah, but so amidst this sudden travesty, that's when humanity's good old friend whiskey stood up to be the hero that we all knew that it was meant to be.
Aw.
Yeah,
Yay. I love a good whiskey hero.
I know. Yeah, exactly. The whiskey hero of all of Europe. So by
Yep.
this time, the coffee still and blended whiskeys had reached such pervasiveness that Scotch distillers were able to fill the void that was left by like the loss of wineries in France and cognac distilleries. Although it wasn't the only drink that actually rose in popularity, as sherry, which I didn't know is originally from Spain, also began to increase in sales. It's kind of similar to cognac, and well, it's kind of in between wine and cognac for anyone who like has
Mhm.
drank sherry. Yeah, it's kind of
It's a sweeter wine.
yeah, it's kind of it's a strange sort of drink. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's from Spain and is growing in popularity as wine disappears. Um, and coincidentally, like you might assume that this would be a competitor to whiskey, so it's like this would cut into the whiskey market, but they actually complemented each other because as
Mhm.
sherry would get drunk, that left the imported like sherry like warehouses and stuff just full of these empty barrels. So the whiskey distillers took those empty casks and started aging their whiskey in these barrels. So they were able to create a whole new line of like kind of sweetened flavored whiskey. So it just kind of shows you that like at every step of the way, whiskey distillers are like, yeah, let's give this a fucking try. It's
Yeah.
like they're like, we're willing to give
They're
anything a shot.
not afraid to take risks.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I mean they saw just a whole bunch of barrels sitting there, and there you go. So, by the 1900s, Irish whiskey had found itself to be the world's most popular spirit across the entire planet. It
Oh
was
wow.
so, yeah, it's kind of, and Irish specific. I found a few websites where they were talking about like, not European, it's not American,
Sorry.
like
Hold
Tennessee
on.
whiskey.
And the cat.
Oh no! Whoa, what are you
He's
doing?
just fucking with the door.
Oh, it's like, Mom, I want to come in.
Hang on.
There he goes.
What are you doing? Do you have to be in here that badly? Yeah? Okay, well,
Oh,
you start chewing on cords, I'm kicking you out. Here, fine, go over there. Hey, stop eating lint. Are you coming here? Okay. He is gonna think about it.
I just realized I don't think I've ever heard him actually make like a sound. And then as you open the door, he's like, "Hey," "Hey, I want to come in here."
Yeah,
Meow.
yeah, that's him.
Poor little baby. And then now that he's in, he's like, "Okay, it's just the room. I've been in here before."
Yeah, I was like, I don't know where he went. He's behind me. I'll show you.
Does he have a knife?
No.
Oh, there. Oh, he's like,
Oh,
"Mom,
you're
I
gonna
don't.
leave now?
I
Okay. I'm gonna
yeah, I
close
don't
the
want to be
door.
on camera."
Hey, Amy, you don't need to be in here.
Ugh. 7:50. Oh, it's 7:50.
Sorry. He gets upset when he's not in the same room as me.
You have mentioned before that he seems to be rather attached to you,
Yes.
which
Yes,
is
he
kind of cute.
is.
It can be annoying, but also cute.
What's annoying is when I have to get up in the middle of the night for like the gazillionth time. And that's when he decides he wants my attention. And I'm like, I am going back to sleep.
Yeah. I haven't made a lot of headway since living here in Eau Claire. My roommate has two cats, and I usually
Yeah.
just keep my door closed and we don't interact a whole lot. But for whatever reason, over the past pretty much since January, like the turn of the new year, one of his cats named Ghost, almost every single day when I get up for work, I'll open my door and he is sitting right there. And he looks up at me and he goes, meow. And I'm like, "Are you ready to make coffee, Ghost?" And then he runs up onto
Yep.
the table and then he sits there while I make coffee. And then I give him little scratches and he sits there while I make coffee and I'm like, "Okay." And
Yep.
I think he wants his master Taylor to get up, but Taylor's still in bed, and so he's like, "Well, fuck it, I'm going downstairs and making coffee with Matt." It's kind of
He's
cute.
like, someone will give me attention.
Yeah, and I think Taylor's right that like what he wants is breakfast, and he knows that I'm awake, but
And
he
you are
has
capable of giving him said
yes,
breakfast.
but I think I have only ever because Taylor left for a weekend something, and so I think I have one time fed them food. And now that I think about it, I
Yeah.
think that was the starting point. He's like, "I know you're
Yeah.
capable of giving me food," and I'm like, "Dude, it was one time, it's one fucking weekend, bro."
It was
But he,
one time, bro.
mm-hmm.
One time thing.
Yeah, but he remembers it. He's like, "I know that you're capable of it, so I know you're making coffee, but I'm
I
gonna
know
come
that
down
you
anyway."
can.
Yeah. Well, and I will occasionally refill their water bowl, and so I think he puts all this together, and he's like, "There's a chance that you'll give me food," and I'm like, "I don't think
Yeah.
it's happening, but fair play, bro."
Yep.
Indeed.
Yep.
So
Usually once he sees that I'm just in here not doing anything, he's like, oh, and then he'll leave.
it's he's like, "Well, like, I don't really have any chaos to cause in here, so all right, goodbye."
Yeah.
Fucking cats. Speaking of chaos, by the 1900s, Irish whiskey had become so popular that it began inspiring new brewers from all over the world to try their hand at
Ooh.
producing their own kind of like European, Scottish, Irish style whiskey. And for Japan, all of that started with one company and one man, and that man was Masataka Taketsuro.
Ooh.
Yes.
Ooh.
I know. I practiced that for a while. He was born in 1894 in Takehara, Hiroshima. And up to this point, Japan had mostly closed off itself from the rest of the world. It had really only
Mhm.
been opening its ports in like the 1850s and the 1860s and increasing global trade after that. As they neared the turn of the century, some Scotch was imported and it was available like in port cities, and that's where most like
Mhm.
tourists would be and stuff. So it didn't really permeate the mainland. But at that point, it was more or less just a curiosity. Like there wasn't an industry, there wasn't interest. But there had been some domestic attempts to like make a sort of scotch, but they were all really weak. They were clearly just imitations, and they had very little, even like chemically, in common with what real scotch was. They were closer to like sake, which
Okay.
obviously was fairly pervasive. Yeah, so it's like it wasn't Scotch whiskey. So Taketsuru's family, they actually ran a sake brewery in 1733. So he's already primed for a life in the industry of spirits in Japan. He actually
Mhm.
studied chemistry at what is now Osaka University. And instead of going to his family business, and I couldn't find if this was like a sense of individuality, like creating his own sense of like honor or whatever for his own thing. But he went to work at a company called Setsu Shuzo, and I also didn't find like what set him on a passion for whiskey. But
Yeah.
yeah, Setsu Shuzo just happened to be a company that was interested in becoming the first authentic domestic whiskey brewer in Japan. So in
Okay.
1918, yeah, they sent him to Scotland to learn how to make authentic whiskey.
That's cool.
I know, right? And I was trying to look into it. I couldn't figure out like why him, what that meant exactly. Like if they sent him there just for that, or if like he petitioned them. But either way, he's on their dime, and he goes to Glasgow. He
Mhm.
enrolls in the University of Glasgow for organic chemistry. He apprentices at a bunch of distilleries all over Scotland. So, like, he spends a lot of time there. He goes from the lowlands to the highlands, and he meticulously learns every aspect of true, authentic Scottish whiskey. And just as an aside, during this time, he marries his wife, Jessie Roberta, aka Rita Cohen. And
Huh?
they didn't there wasn't a lot about them, but they were so in love they got married, and she returns to him with Japan after
Aw.
he learned. Yeah, so like he's like, I'm here just to learn about this, and she's like, well, if you're going back to Japan, I'm going with you.
As it should be.
Yeah, it was really sweet. So after he learned everything he could, he's got his wife. They return to Japan, and unfortunately, at the time he returns, he learned that the company he was working for, Setsu Shuzo, had apparently abandoned their plans for whiskey. And they're like, yeah, we're not doing that anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, and so it's like, okay.
I know we
Um,
sent you on like this whole big excursion and like you found your wife and that's great. We're
yeah,
not doing that anymore, so
right.
cut the crap.
They're like, sorry, there's not a place for you here. Well, and I couldn't find, again, like, I couldn't find if they laid him off or if he left. But unbeknownst to him, there was another man in Japan that had the same dream of like creating an authentic Japanese whiskey. And so in
Mhm.
1921, against overwhelming financial advice, a man named Shinjiro Tori decided to build his own whiskey distillery. He had the resources and he had the backing, but he didn't know the product itself. He needed someone who knew whiskey intimately.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And whether it was by fate, by circumstance, or by like rumors, um, Tori ends up finding Taketsuro, and together they would create what becomes Japan's whiskey industry completely from scratch. Like it's one of the few times in history
That's
where
cool.
I know, right? It's like if you've watched Breaking Bad, it's like the Jesse Pinkman and Walter White of meth in that show.
Yeah.
Like it's one of the few things in history where they trace it directly to these two guys. It's like they started this whole thing. And of course, there were just disagreements about traditions and methods, but they would eventually release their first official whiskey in 1929. And to say it was
Okay.
unsuccessful would be an understatement. Because,
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, considering the timing of it all.
well, we already talked about how, like, even the products they had before that were like called quote unquote whiskeys were closer to like sake. It's like clearly the Japanese consumer isn't interested in like what whiskey is. And
Yeah.
uh uh Shinjiro Tori, the guy who owned the business, like he knew that Japanese customers were used to a softer spirit, and they found Taketsuro's creation a bit too smoky and harsh, which was
Mm.
authentic, but that's not what they're after.
Yeah.
And so, that was a result of he had a very conscious effort to perfectly replicate the Highland style of whiskey making.
Yeah.
Um, and so Tori, who is the owner of this company, he's leading everything. He had decided to let Taketsuro take the reins of the company or of the composition of their product, and it hadn't paid off at all. And he knew inherently that the Japanese palate desired a lighter, more approachable spirit.
Mm.
And it was this fundamental disagreement that after their and I couldn't tell how many things they released, but it seemed like after this one release, they were already at enough of a fundamental disagreement that they decided to part ways. So,
Yeah.
uh, and you can kind of respect it because Taketsuru was still devoted to the authentic Scottish Highland style. So he strikes out on his own in 1934.
Okay.
Yeah. He's determined to recreate all of the conditions of his experience in Scotland, not just like with the style of the whiskey itself, but he wanted to build a distillery in a location that reminded him of the Scotland Highlands. So he needed a cool climate, clean water, and crisp air. So he found a place in the Yoichi district of Hokkaido, Japan, and he founded what was called Dai Nippon Kaju Company. And for
Okay.
anyone influent or fluent in Japanese, uh, they might find the name of the company confusing because it translates to Great Japan Fruit Juice, and you're thinking yeah,
Oh.
like this is supposed to be a whiskey company. Um, and you might think that this was like a sort of metaphoric name, like it's a cheeky sort of joke or something.
Mm.
But it was because whiskey needs to age. So even if you create a
Yeah.
company, you can't just release whiskey immediately. So they actually started distilling in 1936, but they didn't release their first whiskey until 1940. So they had produced apple juice upon its initial opening to like get into business. So like we're waiting for whiskey to
Okay.
yeah, so they were literally a juice company for 4 years. And eventually they shortened their name from Dai Nippon Kaiju, or not Kaiju, Jesus, Kaju. There's a difference. They shortened their name to Nika, and it became the first authentic Scottish style Japanese domestic whiskey.
Okay.
Okay. And
Now he's cooking with a little grease.
absolutely, and like literally some grease, because like the grease in their mash was like what kind of made their well, not mash because that was American, but like the way that they made their whiskey in the Highlands is what gave it that distinct flavor. And
Yeah.
so he insisted upon coal-fired pots, um, and it gave it a distinct flavor that easily set it apart from anything else in the country. and it was the closest thing to Scottish Highland whiskey that you could find in Japan. And his former partner, meanwhile, Tory, he pressed on with his own whiskeys while he was still tweaking his own,
Mhm.
flavor profile and stuff. He released the Suntory Kakubin whiskey in 1937, which had the balance that he had been seeking, and it would become one of Japan's most recognizable iconic whiskey bottles. And they are both still available to this very day. And
Oh,
I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Oh, I should
yeah,
really
I want to
save this
see
one.
these.
So let's see. This first one. This is just kind of a wide range of what their whiskeys are. This is Taketsuru's authentic Scottish whiskey. These are all of their bottles. And so you'll see that some of them are labeled as Nika. So he clearly has like a wider range of different whiskeys, but these are all
Mhm.
from his specific company. And what I was talking about with Tory's company having the most iconic, he created this, what they call a tortoise shell bottle. And I
Oh,
don't know what exactly the difference is, but it really does look badass.
it does.
Yeah, I like that a lot. 80 proof. And so, yeah,
Ooh,
you can still purchase and order them to this day. And I would recommend it. I would like to try them someday,
okay.
and someday we will. Yeah. Someday we're going to do a trip to Japan and we'll try their Japanese
Yes.
whiskeys.
Yes. That is high on my list because they actually have a lot of whiskey, surprisingly.
Well, and that's what I thought was so, yeah, because I'd heard a number of people that I happen to know who went there, that they have a pretty big whiskey culture. And
Yeah.
I was shocked that, like, if my research is correct, it started with these two guys in the early 1900s. Like, for a product that dates back to, I mean, potentially 1,000 years ago, that,
Yeah.
like, they've built their own whiskey industry from just the last 100 plus years. And so I'm like, that's kind of cool. They got their whole thing going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to Irish whiskey, and it was it was back in the 1900s. It was the most popular spirit, and in the early 1900s, it was at the height of its reign as the number one spirit on the planet. Um, it had had boom after boom throughout its long history from the 1400s and such, probably the 1300s. We don't have records, but whatever. Um, the new century finally brought its first major blow, and that would come in the form of American Prohibition. In
Yeah.
19, yeah, well, yeah, and we've already talked about how like restrictions in the past kind of paradoxically led to a huge boom because even though it was illegal, they would just sell it illegally. They would go underground and it didn't matter. Um, but this time, like at this point, America had become such a huge part of Scottish and Irish like whiskey trades
Yeah.
that when the US decided to go into prohibition, their sales dropped significantly because it's like even though it's a popular product even in their own country, even in all across Europe, when the US shuts down, it's like they're not letting anything in. So in
Yeah.
yeah, in past eras when it was illegalized, they could continue selling, but it's like if the US isn't letting stuff in, you're not selling anything because they're
Yeah.
just yeah, the ports are closed. And so bootlegging became a huge industry in the States, but that completely just locked out all of Irish whiskey. And so
Yeah.
even though Irish whiskey had been the number one, they didn't really have enough ties to like keep their industry going. And so their previous sales across the planet were impossible to maintain. And this ended up having a profound effect on the Irish whiskey trade, and it almost completely shut it down. And that meant good news for the Scots because they had closer and greater ties to the European market, more countries and stuff.
Mhm.
And this allowed them to kind of weather because they, had a lot of business in the US as well, but they had more ties to other countries. And so they could weather the prohibition a lot more easily. And once the US finally ended prohibition in 33, Scottish whiskey was able to just start flowing immediately. Whereas in Ireland, a lot of their stills had completely shut down. So Scotland had like hung on just enough that when Prohibition ended, they were just sending whiskey immediately. So yeah, Scottish whiskey
Yeah.
just went into a huge boom. But luckily, the Irish did not give up on their tradition, and through a blending of traditional methods and modern innovation, as well as a strengthened focus on quality and craftsmanship, Ireland maintained a strong revival of their whiskey across the globe. And they created what's called the Irish Whiskey Association, and along with that and government support for tourism and exports, it helped make the resurgence of the Irish whiskey market a global market again, and they made it sustainable and competitive. And
Wow.
yeah, and
The
up
Irish
to
always make a comeback.
they do.
They
Yeah, you
do.
can't keep them down. You can
No.
take their stills, but you cannot take their whiskey.
Nope.
So, up until 2010, there were no more than 4 commercial distilleries in Ireland. And by 2023, there were 40. So they have
Wow.
made they've made quite a comeback. And these days, the whiskey industry itself, as a global industry, is worth 80 billion pounds, which is $107.5 billion American. And Scotland itself produces 1.5 billion bottles of whiskey, no E, just KY, each year. And the US market, it makes up nearly 54% of total global whiskey sales, and that's whiskey with an E. Um,
Jesus.
yeah, I wouldn't have thought that it was that big, but I mean, the US is big, but goddamn, that's a lot of whiskey.
Yeah.
54%, yeah. So I would think it's safe to say that with such a long and varied history, the legacy of this libation is far from ending anytime soon.
I would
That,
agree.
yeah, that is the end of our little story. It's a lot of
Wow.
words and a little bit of whiskey.
I just did not think that so much had happened with whiskey.
I didn't either. I was well, and we didn't even. I kind of touched on America, but as I was doing research, I'm like, we could do like a whole episode on just like Tennessee and Kentucky whiskey.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot to it. I wouldn't have assumed that um, there was such a varied history, and it stemmed back further than I expected. Like I wasn't expecting to start in the 1400s. I assumed we had
Yeah.
alcohol, but not like something that you would define as whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That was wonderful, Matt.
Well, thank
I
you.
enjoyed that.
So I know that you can't drink whiskey at the moment, but what did you and Gabriel like enjoy an evening out with steak and whatnot?
We had our steak in at home. We picked it
Oh,
up,
nice.
and he does have ratings for me.
Oh, he did. Okay, good. I was gonna say, I'm like, for the time at least, like during the pregnancy, I was like, we should have our own little like Gabe's Corner kind of thing.
I know. Um, the whiskey that he suggested specifically, he said 10 out of
Yeah.
10, no notes.
Okay. Which makes sense because it's like his preferred
Yeah.
whiskey, so
Yeah.
fair enough. Okay. What did he think of the
And
steak?
the steak, he gives it like a 8 or a 9 out of 10.
Fair. Sure.
The two together, he would give a solid 9.
Wow. Okay.
I could say that for my steak, I'm gonna give it an 8,
Yeah.
specifically because I was disappointed
Oh
in Texas Roadhouse for forgetting one of my sides.
no. No.
Oh, yes. To be fair, it was a side I didn't really care about, so
Well, and also it doesn't affect the steak itself.
yes, but I was like, "You forgot my side."
Well, now I have to
The
ask, what was the side? Was
It
it
was
coleslaw?
corn.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I I
I get it.
personally do the filet medallions. That's
Oh
what I
yeah,
really like,
sure.
and when when I have the opportunity, I will have it with blue cheese, the sauce, all of it. I can't have blue cheese right now. It's not allowed.
Really?
Yes, because of the
And
mold.
oh, so that's not even like like your body's chemistry. Is that just a general pregnancy thing?
Yep. You
No
can't
kid.
have
Oh,
soft cheeses that has to be pasteurized.
oh, that
So,
makes
like,
sense.
brie from
Yeah.
the grocery store is fine. It's like going to the farmer's market, you have to be careful.
Right,
And
right.
then some of, like, the imported stuff. But
Hmm.
blue cheese is a hard no because of the mold.
Like blue
Because
cheese is a
that's
specific
blue
thing.
cheese is very
Right,
specific.
exactly. Yeah, it's like if it's not that, it's not blue cheese. So there you go.
But, if I don't do the filet medallions, I always do a sirloin.
Yeah.
Gabriel did a sirloin this time, but he's a fan of ribeye.
It's it's kind of hard to beat. It's
It
re
is.
well, and it's so much. I don't mean to sound like a glutton, but like I tend to look
Oh,
at
no, it's
just
a
the
lot.
it is, and I look at like the ounces and I'm like, I want 20 ounces of steak. I'm like, that's why I'm
Yeah,
here. Yeah, I want it. And it's like I know
that
that filet
is
mignon is like tender and delicious, but usually it's like at most 10 ounces. And I'm like, I want just a shitload of steak. And it was so good.
well, and that was what we did last year when we went to the Big Texan. Or no, it was almost 2 years
Oh,
ago. It was like 2 years ago we went, and they had a sirloin on there that was like 24 ounces, and I was like, "I want that."
yes.
Because for anyone who
Absolutely.
does not know, the Big Texan is home to the 72-ounce steak, and it is a food challenge, which
There we go.
Gabriel was, like, thinking about doing, and then he thought about it more and was like, "Yeah, I can't do that." I'm like, "Yeah."
I
But
feel
we
like
went down to Amarillo, Texas just for
yeah.
steak, and it was
Okay.
great. I recommend it.
Well, run this past him. I feel like even as like a Patreon thing, we should take like a camera and a computer and like he and I will go. Well, you can join if you want. Like I feel like we
Yeah.
should just do that. We'll each get the 72 ounce. And even if we don't like the challenge isn't to finish it. It's just to see like how far we can get.
So, the way they recommend eating it,
Yeah.
if you do not do it as the individual challenge,
Okay.
is that you order that steak for the table.
Sure. But
And
then you're but that's not the challenge, right? Like if you
yeah,
order it for the table, it's just like you slice it up and you each
yeah.
have a portion.
The challenge is that you have to eat all 72 ounces by yourself
Right.
with 2 sides and a beer and, like, multiple beers. Or, like,
Okay.
you don't have to choose beer, but a lot of people do. You get a
Yeah.
drink with it.
Right, right, right. I feel like beer is a bit of a mistake. The carbonation alone is
Yes.
yeah, yeah. I'm
That is
if
what we said as we watched someone do it. We're like, "The beer was the mistake."
yeah. Sure, sure. Well, if he and yourself are down, well, and presumably after being pregnant, I don't know how that would necessarily affect it. If you and the
Yeah.
little one as well want to tackle 70 plus ounces of steak, I think that would be fun to do.
Okay, so it includes a shrimp cocktail, baked potato,
Oh,
salad, roll, butter, and of course, 72-ounce steak.
do you have to eat
The
all of
rules
that?
yes, here are the rules of the challenge.
Okay, okay.
The entire meal must be completed in 1 hour. If any of the meal is not consumed, you lose.
Wow.
Before the time starts, you are allowed to cut into the steak and take one bite to make sure it tastes good and it's cooked the way you want it to be.
Okay, okay, good.
And
That
then
does
once
change things. Well, I was just assuming like you get the salad, you get the roll, and you get like the cocktail beforehand, but the clock doesn't start until you actually have the steak in front of you.
yes, and you don't eat
Okay.
anything else until you have the
Right,
steak.
right,
They bring it all out
right.
at once.
Okay. Fair enough. Good to know.
Once you have started, you are not allowed to stand up, leave your table, or have anyone else touch your meal.
Oh, I
You will be
mean,
disqualified if anyone assists you.
Yeah. It's making me want to do it more.
And this is where I could not do it, is
Okay.
you don't have to eat the fat, but we will judge this. Because I don't like fat on, like, meat generally,
Sure.
so
Right,
I
right.
will, like, not eat it.
Sure. But that doesn't affect the challenge. I appreciate that they put that in there where it's like, we understand if you're not comfortable with this, but we're gonna be side eyeing you.
We will
And there,
judge you.
if we put your name on the thing, there's gonna be an asterisk, like they didn't eat the whole thing.
Yeah,
I
should you
oh,
become ill, the contest is over.
wow. I mean, that's fair. For anyone who's seen The Great Outdoors with John Candy and Dan Aykroyd, it's pretty specific. Like you've got to eat the whole thing.
You are required to pay the full amount up front. If you win, we will refund you the entire meal.
Fair. I feel like that's fair. What is the cost? Do they list that?
$72.
All right, reasonable. So, well, oh, for each ounce. And okay, so you're paying for each ounce of the steak, and then you get a drink, the salad, the roll, and corn.
The shrimp
Oh,
cocktail.
shrimp. You know what the weird thing is? I feel I feel like the shrimp cocktail would be the hardest part for me. Everything else, I
I
don't
mean,
want to
I
like.
don't eat shrimp, so that would get me right there.
Well, I just hate cocktail sauce. I don't. I've learned that I don't hate shrimp, but I'm assuming I don't have to eat the cocktail sauce. But the
I
we
don't
like
think
I don't
so.
want to. Yeah, I don't want to speak like too strongly about how much I could eat, but I think I honestly could eat a 72-ounce steak because I was thinking back to when I ate the 20-ounce ribeye. Oh God, could I eat three and a half? Just realized that's three and a half. A little more than three and a half ribeye steak. That's a lot of steak.
I will say I ate more than I thought I was going to,
Yeah.
and I would recommend going again.
Okay. Well, and there again, it's like you're prepaying, so you already know that your $70 is forfeit. So if you don't
Yeah,
make it's about the experience. And either way, I think it would be it would be a fun
yeah,
thing where we're like, look, we're all going down there. This is a Patreon exclusive, baby. Give me a
yeah.
dollar.
They have it where, like, you sit down in, like, the center, and they have cameras so everyone can watch you do
No,
it.
they didn't. Oh my God, that okay. Hold on, that changes a lot.
Yeah,
Wait a minute. I don't. My face just went red. I'm like, I don't know if that's what I. That's not fair.
yep.
What if multiple people do it at one time? Do you like if you don't if you just happen to come in at the same time? Do you all have to sit at the same table? How big is the table?
It's a pretty big table.
Okay,
They
so if
have, like,
mul-
multiple tables down there, so, like,
Oh, okay,
you can have multiple people do it at the same time.
fair enough. All right, that does make me want to do it more. Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
I think once, especially like if we don't do it after your pregnancy, I feel like several years later with your little one, we should go and eat steak with them in Texas and
Yes.
potentially attempt.
I would
Yeah.
be happy to go back to the Big Texan.
Yes.
They have a whole, like, um, section there where, it's the way I have described it to people is that it is like a Texas version of Casa Bonita, and
Oh,
that they have the
okay.
restaurant, but then they have all this other stuff. They have, like, a merch store. They had, like, a little shooting range. They had, like, a little
Shut
oddity section. It was, like,
Whoa.
the craziest, coolest thing I've ever seen.
I was gonna say I mean I'm pretty sure Casa Bonita doesn't have a shooting range.
Well, I mean, it's like a little, like,
It's a
arcade
right.
one.
It's a yeah. It's a carnival game kind of thing, but still,
Yeah.
I don't think that's at Casa Bonita. Although that I don't know if you're aware is I heard what is the name of this place again? The Big Texan.
The Big Texan, yep.
Is it a chain or is it just this one
It is
place?
just the one.
Oh, that increases the prestige quite a bit. Because I was just thinking, I swear that my mom and I ate there, but I think we were just at another place that had a similar thing with like a big steak. Or I was just thinking about the John Candy movie.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of it. The video I have on Instagram has the steak in it or not.
Oh, yeah, that would be good to know. So you took some videos while you were there?
A little bit
Hell
and
yeah.
like photos.
Yes. Well, while you look for those, anyone listening, if you
Oh yeah,
have,
I did.
you did, oh, you got them. They're all on your Instagram.
I'm gonna send it to you. Yeah.
There it is.
Well, because you can see like the other stuff we did there too.
Oh, okay. I take it back. I have not been there. Howdy.
They have
Wow.
guys that like come around with guitars and like will sing to you at dinner. It's
Oh,
great.
that is a shooting gallery. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Is that snow? Where the hell were
Yes.
you? In northern
Amarillo, Northern
Jesus.
Texas.
I was gonna say that is some home of the free 72-ounce steak.
Yeah.
Free in heavy quotation marks because it's like, there are some conditions.
Yeah.
So just to reiterate, like if you get it for the table, you're purchasing it for the table. But if you do it
Yeah.
individually, it's the challenge. And if you eat the whole
Yeah.
thing, it's free. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, look out, Amarillo. We're coming back. The big Texan.
Yeah. I mean, Gabriel wants to go back. His sister wants to go back.
Okay. So there's a group. Like people are ready for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Austin, and it's not near Austin, Texas, I assume, to Austin, Texas to what is
I
it called
mean, I
again? The
don't know how
big
far.
Texan.
Yeah. I don't know how far Austin is from Amarillo.
God damn it. Yeah, that's what I should have done. No, I don't need Google. Leave me alone. Okay. Austin, Texas. Well, I'm only using that just because that's like the only place in Texas I've like kind of been. So we're gonna do that, and then the big Texan steak ranch and
7 and a
brewery.
half.
Wow. Okay. Oh, okay. As long as it's further north. For anyone who's unaware, I can't remember if we've talked about this before, but I have
So it
driven
took
from.
us 6.5 hours from Denver to Amarillo. So probably
Oh,
like
okay.
7.5 with stopping.
Yeah, I would drive that. So I drove from the Twin Cities to Austin, Texas in roughly 16 hours straight. So what I'm getting at is if I didn't have to go through Dallas, I will happily do that because Dallas driving through Dallas, Texas at like 3 p.m. is literally the worst driving experience of my entire life. It's
Oh,
worse
wow.
than yeah, it's worse than delivering mail in freezing rain and snow. It's worse than driving through icy mountains in Montana. If I never drive through Dallas again during rush hour, I will die happy. That was, and so what I'm looking at on the map is that it is way far north and way far west of Dallas. So yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. And they do have whiskey and bourbons that you can try that
Oh
are
hell
rare, I
yeah. Ooh.
guess.
Well, I was gonna say like the fact that it says Steak Ranch and Brewery is interesting. I would give
Yeah.
that a go. 16-hour drive? Yeah, I can do that.
Mhm.
Hell yeah. Take a dog leg at Oklahoma City and you're
Yeah.
home free. All right, I'll let Sammy know. We'll do a road trip. It'll be fun.
There you go.
Where was I here? Well, listeners, if you would like to join us, you can email us at peculiarpairingspod@gmail.com, and you can find us on the app formerly known as Twitter at peculiarpairpod. You can find us on Instagram at peculiarpairingspod, and check us out on Patreon and now on YouTube. So thank you very much.
We are all over the place.
Yeah. And pretty soon we'll be in Texas. Because I want to eat.
Yes, that is the hope.
Celine, do we know what we're doing next week?
Yes, I think you're going to love this.
Oh, no.
We're going to talk about the death of Princess Diana.
Oh, no. I don't know if love is the right word. Well, because there's a lot of conspiratorial stuff going
Exactly.
on. Okay. You're like, well, I mean, she died, so that makes me feel bad. But yeah, I was going to say there's a lot of
the conspiracy behind her death.
And well, and her last name was Di, and then she died. But everyone's going to die. I mean, at some point. So, look, we don't have to talk about that for a long time.
For a week.
Yeah. I meant our own demises, but
oh, I thought you meant Princess Diana, and I was like, well, like we'll be talking about it in like a week.
Yeah, you're like, Matt, we're gonna talk about it next week. That's a good point. Well, thank you everybody for joining us on this journey, and we'll see you in the next one, whether it's a flip flop or not. So, yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
If tales of ghostly hauntings, Bigfoot encounters, extraterrestrial interactions, and cosmic awakenings are your cup of tea, then join me, Eric Szilagyi, host of Uncomfortable Podcast, every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Make Uncomfortable your home for the topics that reside on the fringe of our reality. Eyewitnesses, researchers, and experiencers join me on a weekly basis to delve into their paranormal and otherworldly experiences. Heard in over 65 countries worldwide, follow Uncomfortable Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your casts. Uncomfortable is now presented in video form on YouTube as well. So, as always, my friends, stay uncomfortable.